Namaste. Welcome to Satsang this evening. And if you're new to these teachings or to Satsang in general, welcome. You're in the right place. If you feel most of the time that you don't know what you're doing in your awakening, and not in this, like, I don't know, the peaceful, ultimate, I don't know, as in I really don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just kind of trying my best to make it through. Then I just want you to know that that is, something that we all go through. I'm saying that because I spent a lot of time blaming myself for a seeming lack of progress in my awakening. And actually, awakening was going on in the background despite what my mind thought was happening. So it's good news that. And satsang is for awakening, for the direct experience of who we really are. There is only one being, one sentience, one formless intelligence that is taking the shape of all of these forms, supposedly inanimate and animate, sentient and supposedly insentient. And it can disguise itself as anything, and it is everywhere, as everything and everyone. And it has never not existed. The shapes that it's making are changing, but the consciousness, the awareness, the presence, the real self, I'm going to use lots of different words to describe the same one being, is unchanging. And that's the truth of who we really are. It's not true that we're isolated and separate from each other. It's not true that we're isolated and separate from what we feel we need or want. Perhaps the very idea of separation is what makes us seem to need things, in fact. Whether that's peace, time, more energy, more money. And whatever it is we're looking for, if we can begin to realize there isn't really the separation that we think. Perhaps in the physical manifestation, our bodies may seem separate to each other. But even on that level, it's not really ultimately true. Our bodies are made of what we put in them, right? Also made of the DNA. All of that comes together from our parents, from the food we eat, even the air we breathe, everything. So satsang is to come to realize that we are the one eternal consciousness appearing as all of this. And there's one thing that really held me back for a long time in my own journey that I really wanted to see if we could smash through this myth that we all have in our consciousness that it goes something like this, that and I wasn't conscious of it. It was playing in the background and kind of sabotaging everything, but it goes something like this, that awakened beings somehow have the capacity to do anything consistently straight away. And I was reminded of this, that somehow awakened beings had this extra, they were beginning from somewhere where we're not beginning from, right? Some sense that they didn't have to go through what we're going through in our own journey, or found a way around it, or something like that. Because someone said to me last night, actually, and it stayed with me. They said, actually, we were talking about meditation, learning to meditate consistently. And they said, I wish I was like you. And I get this a lot, in these days, because my meditation is consistent and effortless and fun, even. I don't do it to get anywhere or achieve anything or even get rid of anything. I just do it because it's so nice to just let my body rest and be myself. I'm always myself, but just to let the body sit down and close its eyes and all of that. And it really brought this, I wish I was like you. It just showed me this thing that I used to believe. So I wanted to perhaps share a little bit of my own journey with what we're learning here. This teaching focuses on meditation and contemplation and self-inquiry first and foremost as ways to find out who we are, that we're not a person, we're not an object. The body is a seeming object, but you are not. You are something very different, formless, shapeless, omnipresent consciousness. And then to also help to find out what we're not. We're not really unsafe. We're not really not good enough. In fact, quite the opposite. We're not limited at all. And so these practices need to be practiced regularly to clear away the blocks to our seeing. As we see and see and see again who we really are, it's going to become clearer and more obvious who we are not. We're not the person that we thought we were. In fact, something way more magnificent. And the stuff that you like about your personhood, you know, the stuff that's fun and you like, you get to keep all of that. You're not going to lose any of that. You just get to let go of the things that you don't like so much. Perhaps your own ability to judge yourself disappears, and certainly to judge others. But what I really want to talk about is where all beings start from is the same. There's this myth in human consciousness that somehow some beings start from a different place. All awakened beings started from the same place, meaning our practice, our meditation was totally absent and then completely inconsistent. And then in an attempt to be consistent, it took 10, 15 times at least for me to try to do 30 days in a row with meditation. And sometimes I would forget to meditate and wouldn't realize I'd forgotten that day until about 6 weeks later. Self-inquiry, I thought it was some kind of mental process and really didn't like it, didn't think I could do it, avoided it completely. Couldn't feel an emotion, did everything I could not to, like all of us. So it's good to bear in mind that when you see an awakened being, they're at the end of a process of building consistent habits to where those habits of practice that are going to shape how we live and what we live as, whether it's a separate person, imaginary separate person, because there really isn't one, or the infinite self, the real consciousness, the pure sentience before form. Let's not believe this myth that somehow they magically started with some ability to be consistent in everything they do. All of us are at the effect of habits initially, and we'll feel resistance, we'll feel avoidance, we might even forget to do the practice. And for the very first time I actually meditated, I had this intense bliss. I mean, intense. I didn't even know such a thing existed. I didn't know what it was. And I thought, well, this is meditation now. I've got it, you know, sorted. So, of course, having had that bliss, the very next day I sat down again, eager to meditate again. I'm ready for my bliss. And there was just this tsunami of emotion and thoughts, and I was angry and I was restless, and there was certainly no bliss. And it was I couldn't wait to get to, the first day, the day before, I set out to meditate for 20 minutes and actually ended up sitting there for an hour and I didn't realize time had passed. The day after, 20 minutes. It was the longest 20 minutes of my existence. I mean, it was the slowest ever. And I was watching the time and it just seemed to be stuck, ticking really slow. And I didn't meditate again for nearly a year after that. Maybe 10 months, I think. And then I managed 2 days in a row, and then it was another 6 months. And then I was having a really, really bad time suffering. So I managed to do a week meditation in a row. Missed a week, I think. And then only realized I'd forgotten the practice when I started really suffering again. And at the time, it was easy for me to forget to meditate because I had 4 small children at the time, so there was every reason to avoid it. Did not want to get out of bed in the morning, which was the only time I had while they were still asleep to kind of practice. And contemplation, the art, we practice here the art of asking a question. There was an inability to stay with the question. I would forget the question completely. It took me 8 attempts at doing 30 days contemplation in a row to dissolve a belief that was showing up in my life. And so self-inquiry, it was an epic failure. I thought it was just thinking about the self. It took me at least a year to realize it was not that. For a short time, I was obsessed with Srinivas Maharaj for 1 or 2 years. And I could not for the life of me figure out what I am was. I just couldn't get it. I didn't realize. And about 3 years after I'd stopped really reading all the books, I had this flash, oh, it's just me. I am just this being, the beingness. And I had resistance to everything. I was terrified of everyone and everything. I felt pretty much ashamed most of the time. If anyone said anything even slightly critical to me, I would flush bright red and burst into tears. And I've been like that my whole life. And I could go on and on and on and tell you about my epic journey of failure and how I only finally really learned how to let go through desperation and just not having anywhere else to go. My separate sense of someone had tried every trick it had in its book. It learned a whole new load of spiritual ones, right? I'm going to have this done and try this technique, and tried everything, every which way. And I really just want to make this real, right? Every single awakened being has walked the same journey that we're walking now together. And please don't look at them when they've come out the other side of building those good habits, where they're always peaceful, always joyful, always experiencing abundance. Anything that does come up inside, alongside the peace and joy, some frustration or whatever comes up, is just met with love. It's not like that when we start. So I really want to just encourage everyone that might be feeling that you're doing it wrong, and just to say, no, it's not like that. I'd love to say my own awakening really began to happen from peace and joy, but it was desperation and jealousy that pushed me. Desperation, right? If you've ever felt that, it's a powerful thing because it just looks for something new, something open. And it gives us perhaps an opening that we would not have before. I used to watch thousands and thousands of satsangs online, and ultimately raging jealousy when I saw another being have an awakening. Trying to be on the outside all happy for them, like, oh, I'm so pleased. And inside just, you know how it goes, right? And there's this green mist of fury that used to just kind of red mist or whatever, all of the above. What I'm trying to do here is destroy this idea, right? Can you see what I'm trying to do? It does not exist. Even Ramana, who just decided at 16 years old to lay down and see what it's like to die, he must have done it previous body incarnation, right? The work that you're doing now. Nobody gets a free pass, nobody. And I really want to emphasize that, because if you keep comparing yourself to an awakened being after they've gone through that journey, you're always going to feel inadequate, right? You're never going to feel that you can measure up to that. When I first started teaching, even if you scroll right back through the YouTube archives, you'll see I didn't have the confidence I did then, and that I do now, rather. And I wasn't so sure of myself, not in an egotistical way, but it was different even then. Even when I started teaching, I would get all kinds of negative comments coming back, because deep down inside, I still wasn't liking myself, even hating myself. And there's a whole nother level of awakening to begin to teach. Not every awakened being is going to teach. Very few of them, very few, because it's a different skill set. But hopefully the point of what I'm saying here is hitting home, that I have been, and so has every awakened being, right where you are, desperately wondering if you're ever going to make it, judging yourself at every turn, feeling like everyone else is getting it and not you, right? Anyone else been there with me with that? It's getting some nods going on. And I just have to say that that is the process, right? But there are a few things that we can do to really speed that process up. It's not a process of awakening, it's a process of destroying what you are not, the ideas that we hold about ourselves. The first one is what I'm trying to emphasize here, and that is that you're not doing anything wrong. We could say that awakening is a process of trying and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work, right? And following in any teacher, they're going to show you what worked for them and what seems to work for everybody that they're working with. And that's what we're doing here. But let's not believe the Buddha just, was born and then suddenly, the first time he sat down to meditate, he was just instantly blissed out and never had any resistance ever again. I mean, what was Christ doing in the desert? What was the Buddha doing under the Bodhi tree, right? I'm sitting here until I've worked through this resistance, or until I've pushed through to some level in my meditation where I've lost the capacity to be inconsistent. All we need is consistent practice from a place of as much devotion and curiosity as we can. And here's another place where I blamed myself. I always thought my devotion was not strong enough. And you've probably had those thoughts too. And I want to put that one out of our minds as well. If you're at the stage where you would choose to be in a Zoom meeting like this, rather than doing anything else, then it's a foregone conclusion about your awakening. We're only slowing it down by blaming ourselves. So have you missed meditation today? Have you been working with a question in contemplation and not even realized until you heard this that you've dropped it accidentally and forgotten? Did you judge someone today and then beat yourself up for it? What's happened in your spiritual life and the rest of your life that you're not so happy about? Are you constantly judging and comparing yourself to some idealized image of what an awakened being's life would be like? Because, human life continues, right, all the way through, and you're going to come up against some challenging things, but they'll be met authentically from there. And we're all at the effect of our old habits until we've built new consistent habits. So when we're trying to build a habit to meditate every day, for example, 20 minutes, then we're going to be still trying to build a new habit and experiencing the old habit, which is to avoid and resist. And of course, we haven't built that habit consciously. Now, I'm going to sit down every day and really resist peace. But those are the ways we've learned to function as an imaginary separate self who couldn't deal with the emotions that we had. We didn't know any way out of that, right? So I just want to draw a line tonight here, or whatever time it is for you, and invite you to stop blaming yourself in your own journey. There's no such thing as someone who just spontaneously wakes up without doing the work first. Even if they have some kind of big spontaneous awakening, they still have to do the same work you're doing afterwards. I've seen so many beings have a huge insight, but it doesn't change their thought structure. They still have to look at how they think in terms of separation thinking. That you're separate to this thing and that thing, and that you, all of that. So whatever you are blaming yourself for right now in your own journey and feeling that's going wrong or shouldn't be happening, can you put that into a different context? What if that just is the process? That you stumble and you trip over and you get back up again. And then you stumble again and you get back up again. And you stumble and you get back up again. Do you know how many times I quit awakening? It's funny now, but it really wasn't then. I quit awakening. I don't know how many times. I'm just not doing this anymore. I'm never watching a satsang again. I gave away most of my precious books, which I still regret to this day. I was done, absolutely done. So done. I was just never going to hear the term awakening or enlightenment or non-duality ever again. I think at least 7 or 8 times, at least. And the longest I ever managed was 1 hour. And I was back watching a satsang again, right? Have you done that? Have you tried? This is not working for me. I'm out of here. I don't really want awakening anyway, you know? And 10 minutes later, you're flicking through some scripture going, trying to get something again. And it's important to talk about this stuff because there's such a pervasive idea in the human consciousness that if we're experiencing struggles along our journey, we're somehow doing it wrong. Or that there's some secret that awakened beings know that they're just not telling anybody else. If there is a secret, this is it. This is it, right? That everyone has to walk the same. How it shows up in our life is different. Some people, it might show up in our relationships more, our karmic stuff. Some people more our finances. Some people more in our career. Some people, health and all of whatever it shows up in. But it's the same journey. And if you can, when you stumble, just pick yourself up and say, that's the journey, right? And not telling stories about that. If an awakened being forgets to meditate that day, it will be okay, that's just what happened. It happened, so no big deal. They don't need to meditate anymore, of course, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. I really want to change this paradigm, right? Can you feel the energy of what I'm saying? Can you feel the release and relief if you can recognize you're not actually doing anything wrong? Your mind is trying to protect your separate sense of self always, because that's what it does. And the pure consciousness that you are is trying to always expand through the manifestation, to recognize itself and then begin to live consciously that way. And for a long time, the mind seems to be stronger than the consciousness. And at some point, it begins to change. Eventually, the mind, what it's saying is totally irrelevant. Not wrong, just not so relevant to who you really are. If you're not at that stage yet, it's okay, right? It's okay. Every single awakened being has been in the same place. If you could see some of my old journals, it's horrific stuff, right? It's like a tragedy. Later it becomes a comedy, but it's definitely a tale of woe. So I would not be sitting in this chair without desperation and jealousy. If they are your best friends as well, then you're doing okay, right? I just want to offer that encouragement. You don't have to feel them, but if they're there, then let's not take it as a sign of failure. Let's not listen to our mind when it says that you're failing. How would it know? How would it really know what failure and success is? How does the tiny goldfish know what success looks like in the infinite glass bowl of the self? How would it know? So I'm getting a little passionate here, but hopefully I'm getting my points across. And hopefully I'm managing to smash through this idea that you're doing something different than I did. And it's really, really not true. Or you're not getting something that I got. My journey really was 25 years of figuring out how not to awaken. Or 24 years. And then one real intense year of actually being able to practice consistently. And then still another couple of years after that to really integrate what I'd seen myself to be into my life. But I wasn't suffering from that point. So if you are still researching how to not break through, then you're in good company. How to get out of that quicker is not to blame yourself. If you could watch an awakened being's journey leading up to the point where you see them, you'd see it's exactly like yours, no different. What our mind says is they somehow were born and then at the age 6 learned how to levitate and then in a blissful, deep meditation for the rest of their existence. And it's just not true. Not true at all. Let's not also forget that most of us, we can't just sit in a forest or an ashram or a cave. We have to take the kids to school and we have to get to work on time. And all of those things. We have to pay the bills. We have to feed the family. All of this is happening around your human existence, right? And your human existence is tailor-made for awakening. It's going to push all the right buttons. It's going to push all the buttons that need to be pushed to see where we're still believing ourselves to be a someone. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. You literally cannot get this wrong. Even if you only intellectually know that you are the infinite consciousness, even if it's only thing up here, if that consciousness really is infinite and all-powerful, and it's appearing as you and you want to see who you are, what's going to stop it? Nothing. But you can hold it at bay for 24 years or 24 imaginary lifetimes if you're blaming yourself that you're doing something wrong. Such is your power, right? If I really feel I'm the only one that isn't getting this, then I will really experience not getting this over and over again, because whatever I give my attention to, I'm going to experience over and over again. Can we celebrate that we're here together and that we're doing our best and that there is no, this is how to awaken. Each of our paths, winds its way through to some point where the body and mind are eventually feeling peace all the time. And then a deep sense of love and bliss and joy and all that comes with that. But if we can take heart in our community, that we're all here together, and they were already at the point where we've chosen the highest thing we could be focusing upon. And we can begin to be our own best friends here. Next time you catch yourself judging yourself for something, can you just pause and take a moment and say, I'm doing the best I can. And maybe this is the journey. You stumble, you get back up again. It's really, whatever idea you have in your mind or image about what it is to, how awakened beings got to that point, it is not true. It really isn't. It was just as horrific and messy and unorganized and chaotic as your journey. Just the same. You cannot compare yourself to to an awakened being because it's an unfair comparison, right? You're seeing them at the end of that process of integration. If you want to compare yourself, then compare yourself to how they were before and see if you can still feel unworthy then. Now, I've shared a little bit of my own journey. I'm happy to share more, but hopefully you get the idea and the sense. When I first decided that I'm going to take a stand as the infinite self, I'm going to dare to declare inside myself, this is what I am. Our whole life was in a mess. Everything in my life was upside down. Literally everything. There wasn't one part of my life that was going well. And it has all turned itself around since then. But if you only look at that, you're going to feel that you can't do this. So, I hope that gives you some impetus and courage to continue. You can't really stop anyway, much as the mind would like you to sometimes. Why? Because you're already the infinite self. And it's already beginning to recognize itself, or else you would not be here. And there is no way to stop that process. You can only delay it. Hit the pause button with our self-rejection. So, having said that, if anyone would like to ask any questions or do any contemplation or any inquiry or share any problems you might be having, I'll take up to 5 questions here online. Chris was first on the draw. You're still muted there, Chris. There we go.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
So a thought came to my head about is do different beings have different uh personalities that if they are in certain situations in life, it helps them to awaken better or quicker. Um, like some people are simpler, some people are like complexity and busyness. Like, can you figure out your own kind of personality and choose a path in life that brings you to a place where you can actually practice and awaken quicker? Or is there a way to know? Or how do
It,
you choose how to be led in life? I guess that's
it's
my question.
already happening, right? Your life right now is tailor-made to be the fastest route to your own awakening. Right. So your outer world, when we feel we're a separate person, your outer world is a reflection of what's going on inside consciousness, right? Any beliefs we might be holding on to. So the life that you're living right now is the fastest route. It's not the one we want quite often, but it is the fastest route already. It's so for me, for me there was a lot of fear and shame, and my life kept reflecting that back to me. As much as I didn't want to look at that, it still was the fastest way, eventually to see who I really am and who I'm not. So people have different temperaments, but whatever your life is right now, it's set up for you to succeed, not for you to fail.
Okay.
It doesn't always feel like that, but it's nonetheless. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Bye.
Leonie,
Hey Helen.
hi.
Hi. I I'm really sorry, but I've completely forgot what you said to me in one of the chats around this, so I'm going to ask again.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
okay.
So when I first started again, like with yourself, there was such consistency at the beginning, like 30 days through, definitely through the fear question, and the meditation, and then and as you know, like just seeming to get on and off the horse. So it seems like it's gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
So like it it seems quite opposite to the actual process of what you've just explained. So I'm just querying that really.
So if you can recognize that there's two habits going on here, right? One new habit that's building
Mm-hmm.
towards more consistency, and one that's still functioning a little in the background towards inconsistency. This
Mm-hmm.
one's conscious, this one's unconscious. We've honed it over many years, right? Without realizing.
Yeah.
Ways of avoiding dealing with emotions, uh, dealing with situations, all of it, right?
Yeah.
And at certain points, the old habit might surge and you might realize you've dropped your practice for quite some time.
Yeah.
And that in itself is not the actual issue. It's what you tell yourself when you notice that's happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, is there less judgment around it, less blame around it? Is there a different story? Let's say you forgot to do your practice, whatever that was, practice, and a week later you go, oh my God, it's happened again. Is there a different reaction now inside you to what there would have been initially?
It's better. So I haven't practiced for maybe about a week now, very knowingly, very consciously.
Mhm.
There's just been such resistance to it, like staying in bed longer, that sort of stuff. But not as cruel to myself about it.
And here you are reaching out for help about it again, right? That's huge
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So that's where the rubber meets the road. What story do I tell myself or not about the fact that I didn't do any practice today?
That's brilliant. Yeah. Thank you, Helen.
Even the period where you're not practicing is actual practice in a way, because you're either going to use it to fuel a story or to fuel your awakening.
Yeah. I think like others have really helped in the group as well around, well, even your words, I think from the first time we spoke about this around, this is the process.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, it's seeming like the opposite way round. But yeah, there's still been a wanting to, through the day, put attention on the spaciousness in the room or awareness or, yeah. So there's still moments of that. That's just not the formal practice.
You know,
And
there's going to be times when like big pockets of emotion come up because your system is opening as you're getting deeper into this. Some stuff is going to come up, and for a little while it can get a little screwy while there's a big emotion coming up, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And it's okay. What if this is happening because it's an opportunity for self-love rather than a failure? an
Yeah.
opportunity to be kinder to yourself, to actually see, wow, I didn't do that thing I normally do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
gold right there, right? That's it.
Yeah. Because even when through the the days of not practicing, yeah, it's definitely not as cruel. My mind is a sort of like, oh, you've not done it again. And then when you was talking this evening, I could hear mind like, right, so tomorrow morning we're gonna do this and this.
Right. Yes, good. I'm gonna get at it. And then tomorrow morning you sleep through your alarm and
Yeah.
run out of time, you gotta get up and go to work. And what you tell yourself then is all important.
Got you. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Because
there's still some stuff that's a bit cruel and but it definitely isn't like a huge issue. It's just, oh, okay, I would like to do this more consistently, but we haven't, so let's move on and do the day sort of stuff. Yeah.
that's perfect. And that's what an awakened being would do. Oh, well, I really would like if that didn't happen again, but oh well, so the desire is fueled. It's used to fuel a desire or devotion, whatever you want to call it. But it's just what happened, right?
Yeah.
You're not the one who chose to lay in bed. You're not the doer in that way.
Yeah.
And when the body gets out of bed and sits for meditation, we go, I did it well today, and then when it
Yeah.
doesn't, we go, I didn't do it well at all. It's just not like that, right? And anything that goes wrong, seemingly, is always an opportunity to be nicer to yourself.
Got you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Helen.
Wonderful. And well done for asking again. We all need to hear it again and again. So thank you. Rick?
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
I must say that I tuned into your teachings over the last month or so, and really refreshing. I've been meditating since the late 90s, studied with the Tibetans, and got caught up in a lot of the intellectualizing for years after
Oh,
having
we all
had
did.
glimpses.
We all did,
Uh,
right? Been there.
Something that's really particularly helpful is the very feminine energy that you help me to look with. The sort of masculine of, okay, what's the technique? What do I do next? Can be a real defeater. It blocks things up into a certain way. So my problem, if I would call it a problem, isn't so much sitting. I have an overachiever sense of I can sit, hours. But one thing I began to recognize is that when doing inquiry, and you really helped open up my inquiry practice with this sense of just touch, look, is the practitioner that's so infused with the the the, the practice, the one that's over your shoulder, and I say, well, who is looking? Well, there's like 9 of them back there. All of them go, oh, it's this nothing. Oh no, it's something. Oh, look, it's a space. So that constant, insidious, merged sense of presence that has all the practitioner eyes all narrowed into this one little point. So any advice about recognizing that you've got a couple of watchers going on?
Usually a whole
And
audience, right? The whole
the whole table.
theater is packed out with opinions about how you're doing with your inquiry or something, right? Yeah. It's firstly to recognize, again, it's like that for everyone. It's not anything that you're doing wrong in particular. And for me, it became important to see who I am and to we work with this question sometimes of how am I, let's call it awareness or whatever name you want to put to the real self. And when I see my real nature, awareness, we work with this question, how am I seeing it? So I could ask you right now, is awareness present? And we could look and go, yeah, something's aware of this conversation, right? There's awareness of these words, etc. we know it's there. And for a long time, there'd be an assumption inside me that I'm seeing that from my mind or my body somehow. I was recognizing awareness from some part of this. And to ask this question, how am I actually how do I know awareness is here? I'm not seeing it with my eyes, right? Because it's not visible, it's not tangible. Am I seeing it with my mind? And I really sat with that question to come to the realization it's actually not my mind either. My mind's just a bunch of opinions, right? As we're saying, thoughts. And as I sat with this question, I just started to get some distance from the audience. They were just kind of moving away. And anything that the mind had to say was just less and less. At first, it's right in your face, right up here, right? And it was just kind of less and less relevant. And the reason the mind seems to really, the reason we listen to the mind is because we think it's talking to us, right? But what if it isn't? What if it's not talking to you? So just not only do it in the inquiry, recognizing who you are, but how are you recognizing that? That became a really important question for me to just play with for a while. And it became clearer. No huge fireworks moment, just became clearer. Awareness is recognizing itself. It doesn't do that through the mind and body. The mind and body give it a contrast, right? Something growing and moving and changing helps me to recognize I am unchanging and unmoving and always here. But I'm not using any part of my body and mind. When I self-inquire, it's the awareness looking directly at itself. So it just helps you get a little distance from the mind then. Not that the mind is bad or wrong. We're not making it the bad guy. It's just its opinions are going to be important to us while we think we need it. Can you get a sense of it?
Very helpful.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that the contracting point, when you let that go, it's more of the room is recognizing itself.
Yeah, exactly. And not so much the little guy sat in the chair in the middle of the room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll go to Grace.
Hello, Helen.
Hi.
I feel I wanna go straight to my question. When I usually see that I have the repeated struggle for me is more relational. It comes over and over like a pattern in my relationships when I start to feel that frustration that the other person, like I'm trying to convey something, and it's met with denial, or like it feels like a sense of gaslighting. But what started to fascinate, I mean, it's like to puzzle me, I would say. I'm stuck with this thought for a while now, like, okay, when I am going through something, since it's all one being, it's all one. So if I'm having a thought of rejection or judgment, or uh, doesn't that mean by default that this thought is also happening in the other mind that I am involved with? And maybe the expression is different, because usually for me there is that I'm trying to extract this from their mind. Like, why don't you just say that we are both having something similar? Why do I have to feel that it's just happening in my own individual mind? And this just emphasized the fear of separation, that there is something wrong with me. Can you just say more about that?
Yeah, so it might not be the exact same thought as you're thinking, but your inner response will be also going on in the other body. So let's say you're having a conversation with someone and you're trying to get a point across, you're trying to explain something, and the response that comes back is like a shutting down. No, don't want to hear that. Just as an example. what that brings up in you might be some sense of rejection or something like that, not being heard or listened to. And so inside the apparent other being, there's some rejection going on also of their own self. Okay, so most times the other being, apparent other being, won't be conscious of that at all. So it's not the actual subject of the conversation, it's our response inside that's being mirrored. So if you and I were having a conversation and you were being, just as again as another example to make it clearer, let's say you were being very aggressive and rude, and inside there was something that felt hurt. It would be showing me that I'm rejecting myself, if I could see it, right? Some part of me, I don't like myself on some level. So it's always going to be to do with what the emotion is that's coming up when that situation happens, rather than what's going on the surface. That's the mirror in there. So if someone feels like if it feels like they don't want to hear what you're saying, or gaslighting, like you said, whatever is going on there, where are you unknowingly doing that to yourself? Are you rejecting your own self? Are you criticizing yourself? It's going to show us what's going on in the apparent other, what's going on in our own environment still. And for me, that was a lot of stuff like that, shame and rejection and self-hatred going on that I didn't know was there really until other people, I got so good at avoiding it that other people's rejection of me was the only way I was forced to look at it, because it hurt so much.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel sometimes it feels like dealing with they call it sometimes vulnerability hangover, when you feel you opened up too much, and it feels like there is something as if it became as if like instead of doing this work with the intention of me hearing myself, it becomes more about like wanting to get this from the other person, and it's just emphasizing the shame and the guilt. And I feel like now it's just my prayer to get out of this, because it's still like sticky now. It feels like sticky.
When
Yeah.
awakening begins to deepen, even before we've seen who we are clearly, even before that, the truth is going to want to change all of your relationships, right? From romantic to your family, your siblings, your parents, your children, your work colleagues. Every relationship you have is going to undergo an upgrade. So most human beings, what they call a relationship is kind of a bargaining, so we're going to, without realizing, we're going to talk to someone else and we're needing something from them. Like, I need you to like me, or I need you to respect me, or make me feel safe or loved, or whatever it is, right? And to a certain extent, that's okay when we feel we're a separate person. But as we start to really see there aren't any other beings, even before we see that, this mechanism breaks down because it's in duality. It's in two-ness. And I had to look at every relationship and what do I need from this being? Okay, this person, I need them to respect me. And this person, I need them to make me feel safe. I wasn't conscious until I really looked. And then I had to really see they can't give it to me if they're not feeling safe either, or respected or loved. Even if we're really nice, that person, it's still got to try to get through their own ideas that they're not good enough, so it can't get through. They can't give us what they don't have either. Everyone's running on empty, right? When your car's almost out of petrol, everyone's running around like that, desperately trying to bargain with people. You give me this, I'll give you that. So I had to look at what is it I want from this person? And it came down to just safety, love, and respect, approval, whatever word you want to put. Then I had to ask myself, is it true that it's not here right now? Do I need to rely on other beings? And has that ever really worked? Can I really experience fulfillment in a relationship if I'm coming to it needing something with my metaphorical hand out? Please, please give me this. And there's something beautiful that starts to happen when we say, it must be here right now. I'm going to really start to allow it to come from the inside. And of course, as we see who we really are, that all starts to flow anyway. We only haven't felt safe because we're trying to get it from someone else, right? So we're stating, if I'm trying to get you to like me, I'm kind of stating that I don't feel that way already. I don't like myself. I need you to like me. So all my relationships had to go through this kind of, not all at once, but one by one. What am I shopping for in this conversation, right? What am I trying to get? And is it true it's not here now? And it's this beautiful thing that happens when two human beings meet and do not need anything from each other. It's so wonderful. It's really a move from conditional to unconditional love. That's what's happening here in this that you're describing, right?
Mm.
So maybe just sitting with that particular relationship and it's something everyone can do. What am I trying to get from them? How would I feel if this conversation went the way I want it to? How would I feel that I don't feel now? And can I allow that from the inside rather than trying to get it right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Last but not least is Mary. Hope I'm saying that right.
Yes,
Hi.
it's Mari. Hi, Helen.
Hi. Marie, sorry.
It's Mari. You're
Oh, Mary. Okay.
right. Yeah. That was a really wonderful talk, and also the people's questions. So yeah, that last thing you said, is it true it's not here now? I've been looking at that. So what I wanted to say was that when you were talking about success and failure, that really hit a nerve, and it wasn't so much around the awakening stuff, although that's definitely there too. It's like banging my head against the wall about that, but
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
the past 2.5 years of I mean, I've come out of it now, but it was like illness, both physical and mental, losing all financial security, experiencing every fear I could ever have, really kind of full on. And then I'm in this kind of building from the ground up phase, I would say, of life. It's really, yeah, it's tough, but there's also like a lot of beautiful things happening. So it's like the most extraordinarily amount of suffering, but also then there's all this really unusual, things I didn't expect to come into my life. But so back to the meditation part, I am doing it a little more. It's coming just as I'm, say, waiting for an appointment or something like that, and looking at some trees or walking along. And I'll find myself in that hypnosis, like the fear of some kind of difficult circumstance. And then here I am. And then I realize, oh, I'm picturing myself, I have an image of myself in this horrible circumstance. And then, of course, it projects into the future some even worse circumstance that could befall this image. And and then I suddenly go, okay, I just have this sentence like, can I unhook? Okay, I'm going to unhook from this thought so I don't have to dive into the whole cesspool of suffering, And it's kind of amazing that suddenly having the ability to do that, it's not happening all the time, but it's sort of like when I do, it's sort of like, oh, that's happening. And it unhooks, and then I kind of come out of that, and I don't have the huge, not always don't have the huge emotional response to whatever I was going through or thinking about. and then it sort of evaporates quite quickly, and I'm kind of like, wow, is that what that is? You know, is that part of the coming out of that hypnosis bit by bit? Does it happen more? You know, anyway, I just thought I'd bring that to you.
Yeah, I remember the first time I felt like I had a choice, like in that moment, whether to go into it or just like, I'm not gonna touch that, you know? And at first it was very few and far between, but it just started to happen more and more. There's a power and a clarity that's available as we start to recognize who we really are, that just isn't there, isn't an option, seemingly, when we're still thinking we're a person, a separate being. In that moment where some big juicy story comes up and the tension's about to go with it and the emotions there and everything, the clearer we've seen who we are, the more we're going to have some little heads up in that moment. I don't have to go with this. I can just unhook, as you said so well, and stay here as myself. And that just begins to happen more and more often. And eventually, even the sense that you can feel that something's about to come up, and even before it's actually even formed as a emotion or a thought, you can, no, thank you, not today. I'm just gonna stay here. And we've always had that choice. We just haven't really had enough kind of life force or clarity to realize we had a choice, right? Attention has just gone into the thing before we even realized, and maybe lost in there for days at first, weeks, months, years. So it just kind of, it is a little weird, right, when it first starts happening, and then it just gets more and more normal. Eventually to the point where mind will just say something and you just can't even go with it. You just can't. There's no, it's not even a choice. Do I go or stay? You're just here. Just as this, yeah.
And did you find also that when you did get pulled into emotion, it's so strong, it's almost like I just had this experience of just howling, the howling cry. And actually I was talking with someone else while I was doing it, which could never really happen before because there was too much shame around crying, but then once it was through and done, I was like, well, I'm done.
That was a weird hour. What was that about? Yeah. Right after I'd really began to be able to live as who I really am. It was very incremental. Something happened that just stirred up so much emotion. I remember sitting right here in this house on the floor, wailing, sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And I remember it clearly because firstly it felt terrible, but there was just nothing within me that could judge myself for that. I mean, not the pretty crying where it's just rolling down, when it's like, and you've run out of tissues and everything, that kind of wailing. Yeah. Not the little sobbing. And it was just so freeing just not to be able to stop that in any way. Just whatever it was, right? And so even when you do go into it or some story comes up, it's just, that's what happened, and then it's over and it's done. And even then you're not suffering. You're just watching the body and mind go through whatever they're going through from this kind of peaceful, compassionate place.
Yeah, as you said, it's a process though, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, just for me, it was about destroying that had to happen because I had this idea that would not occur after awakening. I would always be like, but stuff happens, right? Sometimes some emotion comes up and increasingly less and less, but just for me to see, I don't know what I'm going to do in that moment. I'll get through it gracefully or disgracefully, whichever way, and it will look like whatever it looks like. And maybe that be sobbing and all of that, or whatever it is. But it really destroyed my capacity to go, this is what awakening should look like. It's like, I don't really know what that is anymore. I'll be whatever I am in this moment, right? My mind and body, at least. But there's always peace there then.
Do all people, I would say, have gone through, who have awakened, let's say, is there one moment where you know that part has actually happened, and then there's the rest of it? Or
Can you
and it just be so
explain?
imperceptible that you're like, am I actually awakening without that one moment? Like, I don't feel like I've crossed over into some one moment, or else,
I didn't have a clue actually until somebody had to tell me. Actually, it was so gradual. Somebody had to tell me, you know, you're not suffering anymore. I don't see you suffering anymore or resisting anything. And I was like, you know, that. And then the next time some fear came up, there was nothing in me that could push it away. And it was intense. It was really strong fear, but I just couldn't do anything with it other than feel it. Couldn't think about it, couldn't do anything. And there was actually bliss there at the same time as the fear, because I was totally being with it. It was really a very strange but wonderful experience. So I only knew in hindsight by how differently I was being with things. There is a big myth, right, that there's going to be some moment where you know you're done. And it just wasn't like that for me. It was only afterwards, wow, I can't resist this emotion anymore. Or sometimes I find myself saying some things to some people that I've needed to say for a long time and not been able to. Being able to set some boundaries, you know, things like that. That I just wouldn't have been able to do as a separate being, an imaginary separate being. So it really was, when my ability to suffer fell away, I could not tell you. And that's not what we think it's going to be like, right?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that, because there's so many stories about the Big Bang, you know.
And you see those people, right? That you get on, watch a live site and everyone's going, oh, and they're sobbing and laughing and shaking. And it wasn't like that for me. It was just so slow. I didn't even notice it had happened. Tiny bit each day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a good thing to bring forward. So thank you. So that's a good place to leave it for today. What amazing questions you guys always bring. Just absolutely amazing and so helpful for all of us on the journey. So thank you very much. Namaste.